the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just before you sit down, if we could just take a moment of silence, the Borough family has lost a couple people, since our last meeting. One is, Chris Becca, who was, one of our code officials, passed away, but had a long battle with cancer, passed away just the last few days. And then someone else who's not directly part of our borough family, Laura Capelli, her daughter, has been a part of helping out with things here at the borough. Laura's municipal court clerk in Haddon Township, the wife of our dear friend Lou Capelli, and the sister of our dear clerk. Both of them passed away since our last meeting. It's just a moment of silence. We could remember. Okay, thank you. Okay. The borough complied with the notice of provisions of the Sunshine Law by adopting prior to January 10th of this year, a resolution prescribing the dates and payments of all regular meetings of the commission. This meeting is one of the meetings listed in such resolution, and copies of the resolution were prior to January 10th filed with the borough. Okay, Bob.
You should file the report. I do not have the minutes report. I have a zoning official report.
Take a motion.
We have the first reading of ordinance 1788, amendment to chapter 141 of the Code of the Borough of College, 900 Haddon Avenue.
So this is the first reading of an ordinance to make a zoning change within, that applies to the 900 Haddon Avenue building. The change that we're making there is, since the new owners have done renovations to it, they've done had a lot of new tenants, a lot of new people coming. And under our zoning ordinance, a bunch of them have had to come into the planning board to get site plan approvals because their use was not one of the uses permitted under the ordinance. A lot of new businesses, different types of businesses than when our ordinance was adopted like 10, 15 years ago. So we asked our borough planner to take a look at it, come up with what uses there have been a few of, have been multiples of, so that we could revise the ordinance, make them permitted uses. If that seems to be the type of use that's happening there, this will now make it be permitted. So we don't put a new business through that process. And so that's what this is. And it's more of like an education-based business, is pretty much what it is. That's the only one where there's been a repeat business on it. So we've got that, and making that change. So the public hearing on this will be at our October meeting, which is October 7. There'll be a public hearing at that time. Paul?
Mayor Manley?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewandowski?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
With the first reading of ordinance 1789, establishing cannabis licensing.
So this is an ordinance, pretty extensive ordinance that deals with licensing of cannabis businesses. We had earlier approved, the allowed zoning along basically the Route 1 Ferry corridor, for cannabis uses. We have a couple businesses. One actually is pretty far along. What was the old Egbert Express, kind of next to Fortuna Dance Studio down there, has had a lot of work done. They're pretty far along with the construction. That should be, hopefully, that's a retail cannabis. That should be open soon. And then another one is at the diner, the Kingswood Diner. That's not as far along, but that's in the process. So what this does, this ordinance establishes and sets up an annual licensing process. Information they have to supply to us every year. It gets renewed. In the old days, it used to be like taxi cabs used to get licensed this way. In towns that have liquor licenses, this is the process you go through. Most towns are setting up this local licensing process, and so we're doing it to set it up here since we're pretty close to getting one in the door. So the public hearing on this one will be October 7.
Mayor Manley?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewandowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Okay, we have public comment from the resolutions.
So this is the public comment, and this is simply for anyone that has any questions, comments about any of the items on the rest of the agenda. If you've got generic public comments, please hold them until the end of the meeting. But if you have anything specific, question or comments or anything about what's on the agenda, now's your chance. Anybody? Okay,
Appointing Emma Tolman as teen librarian for the Collinsville Public Library.
yes,
Appointing Michael DePalma as building subcode official. And we removed the building inspector. So it's appointing Michael DePalma as building subcode official.
yes.
Referring redevelopment ordinance 1788 to the planning board for review.
So this is referring the plan, the redevelopment plan amendment that I talked about with about 900 Haddon. This is now referring that over to the planning board. They take a look at it. If there's any comments that we have before it gets adopted, before we consider it for adoption on October 7th. Yes.
Yes. Authorizing the acceptance of the 2025 Safe and Secure Grant.
And this is simply getting free money in the door. Yes.
Yeah.
Authorizing the re-advertising for bids for the Collinsville Pocket Park at Haddon Avenue and Woodlawn Avenue and rejecting the bids received on August 29th, 2024.
So everybody's familiar with the plans for the pocket park over across from Ocean First. We had a lot of public input in it. We went out the bid on it, and the bids came in. The low bid came in more than double what we were anticipating it would be. The higher bid came in quadruple what we were anticipating it to be. So we're rejecting those bids, those numbers like 550, 800 ballpark, were the bids that came in. So we're rejecting these bids, and then the law lets us go through a process now of negotiation. So we're gonna begin to look at what cost a lot if we change from this product to this product, and we knock the price down and get it closer to where we were hoping to spend on. So that's the process we're gonna begin now. Anything that's our long-awaited pocket park. Yeah, Rome was built quicker.
Yes.
And awarding a consulting agreement to Gable Associates Incorporated, authorizing issuance of a request for proposal for community solar developers.
So this is a process that started some time ago. Commissioner Lozowski, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so this is a somewhat recent, there's two resolutions both dealing with Gable Associates. This one, has to do with the community solar, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so what it is that the law allows for, to form essentially subscriber groups to take advantage of things, including the aggregation of solar. This specific program is trying to connect to low and moderate income households. Whereas I can put solar panels on my roof and reap those benefits. A lot of people, especially in rental housing, that housing, don't have that advantage. So this would empower Gable Associates to put together a program, to do the outreach, try to develop a solar program that would either tie into existing solar, infrastructure or new stuff, and that low moderate income families would have the opportunity to benefit from.
Okay, and this is authorizing an RFP. So Gable, we're contracting with this consultant group, Gable. They're going to go put together a request for proposals to try to get solar developers that would be interested in doing the project. And we get those proposals and we can take a look and see if any of them make sense. Okay,
Yes.
It's
just
yes, sorry.
Awarding a consulting agreement to Gable Associates Incorporated, authorizing issuance of a RFP for third-party electric suppliers to serve a government energy aggregation program and related actions.
Yeah, so it's been a few years since we last entered into a contract with Gable and Associates. This is the idea of community energy aggregation. Essentially we've been installed because we could get numbers that really work. It was not supportable. We hope that, in the future, they seem to feel that the markets are changing somewhat, and then we can launch a program.
Yes,
Yes.
And then not on the agenda, it's the approving the payment of bills as presented by the treasurer.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Mr. Robinson?
I'd like to wish everybody a safe, healthy, happy school year coming up. I personally have entered my last school year as a parent. It's fine with me. My senior has to be in school at 6 a.m. He reminded me for senior sunrise. Also of note, we have Clover Market coming up on the 22nd of September and our book festival on the 5th of October.
Yeah, I just, Robert's School obviously closed with, Labor Day, thanks to all the staff and really the community for making it just a fantastic season. So thank you for that. Just a couple other dates. National Night Out is the first, so that'll be before our next meeting. October 1st, that'll be at Scottish Rite, 6 to 8 p.m. We're supposed to do it during the summer, little rain got in the way. Porch Fest, the 28th of September, over 100 bands, performers, all around town, great day. And just a reminder for folks, the senior freeze for property tax deadline is October 31st, but get in early. That's, you know, income conditional for seniors in the state. And you can find out about most of this stuff in town crier. There's copies all around if you need. You don't have to pay this.
Okay, the reval process is kind of rolling through the home inspection, property inspections. We're hopeful that sometime this fall, they'll be able to finalize those numbers. They'll be getting letters out to everyone in the borough, every property owner. One of the things that we insist of our reval companies, every time we've ever done it, is they'll include within that letter an estimate of taxes, of what your taxes would be. So if, for the revaluation, we've talked about it before, but revaluations just do a reassessment of all the properties to get them closer to 100% of value. And the rule of thumb for revaluations are a third of the folks will see their taxes go up, a third will see them stay the same, a third will see their taxes go down. And that generally is whether or not your house has appreciated more than the average home in town, less than the average home in town. That's the process that they go through. I'm sorry to say, this is like about my 6th or 7th of these I've seen. We've gotten better at it. We've gotten really good at it. Once you get those letters, you have an opportunity to meet with the company that put the value on it, informally sit down and go over it. You then have a more formal appeal period, and then you can actually file an appeal with the County Board of Taxation with respect to what that assessment is. So there's lots of opportunity for review, providing evidence. It's a weird process. It's not one you do naturally, because you're going in to say, my house really isn't worth what the guy next door is, or the guy across the street. My house, I don't have this, I don't have that. He has a much nicer yard. I don't have this. It's not what we're used to doing. But that's the process that you can go through. People use comparable sales, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that's coming along. The borough took delivery of a new fire engine. I know that excites everyone, but for the folks that I work with here, that really excites a whole lot of them. We're doing an old fashioned, in the old days, they used to do these, when a company would get a new fire truck, they would have what they call a housing ceremony, where the members of the, back in the day, the volunteer fire company would actually push the fire truck into the station, kind of like carrying the bride across the threshold. We're gonna have a little bit of a housing ceremony on Saturday at 1 o'clock at the police fire station. My guess is they will not be pushing this in, but there'll be a little bit of a symbolic pushing in. But that's coming up Saturday. That's a really big deal. You can go watch $1 million of our tax money get rolled into a nice bay of the fire. And I want to echo comments about the pool. Our pool it's such a great amenity. It has been that way for a long time. We put a bunch of money into it over the years. It really has been running smoothly because of a lot of people, a lot of our kids are lifeguards there, kids are running the snack stand there. I want to give a special shout out to Nancy O'Neill, who, is finishing up 28 years at the pool. And I don't say she's finishing her 28th, I don't know that it'll be the end, because she told me it was the end after 24. And we were able to keep her coming back. But I want to thank all the staff down there. It is no small feat to make that go without trouble, without issues. Having, a few hundred kids and parents running all over the place, is not the easiest thing, to keep control. They've done a great job. So that's all we have. We're gonna open up to the floor. Whatever issues you have, like raised before the commission, this is your opportunity to do so. Yep, I can go ahead. You just give us your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Megan Donnelly. I'm 325 West Franklin, 08107. And just two short questions about the All In for Collegewood referendum. Regardless of the outcome of the public vote on September 17th, are you committed to investing the money you recently pledged to our schools? So in other words, if the district is able to purchase good coverage, would you still commit to investing that $1 million in change that you had offered to help our schools in some other way?
So we never said we were just gonna spend the money, okay? So that's just first, we never got to the point of having a discussion. But what we are, listen, whatever, I'm happy to do it today. We thought we were in a cooperative, we thought we were working together before. But, we're happy to start talking about what to be done, how, where, what the plan is for September 18th, no matter how things go.
Yeah, sort of before I get to my second question, I guess then I have a little bit of a follow-up question. If the referendum passes, would you possibly be willing to do the purchase of Garfield at market value and then oversee that sort of like transition from school property to?
Way ahead of the game here, just way ahead of the game. I'd love to have, I appreciate you asking those questions. It'd be great to have the school board members asking those questions and having those discussions. But we're open to talk about anything. We sent, the proposal we made and sent over to them was to have the discussion. And just didn't quite get there.
Thank you. Just my second question, do you have a plan to address the concentration of economically disadvantaged kids in one school?
I don't have a plan for it, have not been asked to participate in putting together a plan for that, but would be happy to. Yep, just name and address.
Hi, Rebecca C., 1030 Grant Ave. So in a similar vein of questions, one of the things that one of the school board members had encouraged a group of us sharp parents to do was to come and ask questions publicly, which appreciate the opportunity to do so. One of the things coming out of the recreation study that happened with the borough previously, we'd been under the impression there were conversations between the borough and the district about the fields behind the high school and middle school and the role that pilot funding or borough funding might be able to play in those fields with or without a referendum. Can you speak to the role the borough might have played with the district up to today and what might happen if the referendum passes or fails and what the borough may be willing to do?
Go ahead. You can-
I think that was always our understanding is, and our wish is to work with the school district. I think, I can't speak for Warren or Jim, but I was a little surprised when it was announced that they were going to bond referendum including fields, because I thought we were having these conversations. So, it kind of preempted stuff. Part of the reason why we came forward with the idea of saying, look, if you're backed into this date because you have a lease and you have to deal with something with Good Shepherd, that's when we sort of came forward with the idea of money. With the idea of then, that might open us up to have these conversations. And the school board, as is their right, and I respect that, said, look, we're this far along, we're gonna go and do this, and that's fine. I'll be voting. So, what happens after that, I think, part of me wants to wait and see what happens with that monitor, because the facts will determine the next steps. And I'm sort of, don't have the bandwidth to do contingency on all these different things, and I just kind of want to see what happens. That's where I'm at.
I agree.
And those fields and stuff, by the way, I threw, all 4 of my kids were in middle school and high school from when they loaded the things straight through to last year. They're just, it's sad. It's sad, and I cooked hot dogs at football games for 5 years, and for the marching band, and I saw what it was like, people dragging chairs in there, and, people with grandparents, and, kids deserve better than that. And, whether it's this bond referendum or something else, like, there needs to be an urgency to that. It's sad.
And listen, just to follow on that is the reason why, a couple of years ago, the borough started the rec plan. And we met with the school board and said, we're doing this, and we invite you to be a part of it, and we made them part of the steering committee, executive committee, and we had some meetings with them, and we did an event here with the public, and literally a month or so before I was told that there was a referendum, we were at a meeting with all of them. And with the consultant going over it, and they didn't say anything to us about what was coming. And it was done, like it was obvious it was done. So yes, we're more than happy to talk about it. We thought we were, okay? And I just to be clear, Megan, the questions you asked me about the proposal we made a proposal because at least what we were hearing and seeing was that Good Shepherd, there was some urgency to not lose Good Shepherd. And that's why things were kind of being fast tracked. So that's why we made the proposal, look, we'll go acquire that now, we'll go acquire that. Let's then go through a process, okay? That doesn't make as many people feel left out. Let's go through the process.
It would have bought time for better communication and more structured delivery and more planning in general.
It wasn't, we didn't come from a mindset of like, oh, here's $1 million, that'll help fix it. Okay, that's not what the goal. The goal was, how do we engage in a way that doesn't end up where I got left side, right side sitting here pretty clearly to identify who's what, there shouldn't all this fighting go. That's all. So, go ahead, yes, Joe, just name and address for the record.
Joe Spilento, 194 Lawnside Ave. In responding to Meg just now, I heard you say that Meg brought up the idea of the borough buying Garfield and shepherding it through kind of the redevelopment process, right? And I heard you say, I haven't been asked to do that. But in point of fact, wasn't that the board's counter proposal to you when they said no to the Good Shepherd offer?
Well, no, listen, the response we got from the board, our letter asked to sit and discuss, okay, to me. We went to a meeting, and at the meeting, we were handed a letter that said no. Okay, that's not my expectation of going to a meeting. When I go to a meeting, I'm thinking we're gonna talk, just the way Meg asked me, well, what about this, how about that, we're gonna talk about it. We were handed a letter that said no, okay? And the letter said no, and pay for this, pay for this, pay for this, okay? And don't treat that as, I don't feel like, at least for me, that's like not a serious response.
But you were asked if you would consider buying Garfield in that
Yeah,
letter.
We were told what we could do after it passed was buy Garfield, pay for all the transportation for all the students that would be affected. And what was the third? There was another big number too. There was a third thing. What was the third thing? They asked for another thing next.
We could do the fields.
Oh, yeah, so,
So it's not true to say that. you-
oh, no, it is absolutely true. That's not
I
an
just
ask.
wanted to clear that.
That is not an ask.
Sure.
That is not an ask. And listen, we've been around for meetings to have a discussion. Frankly, we've had more of a discussion in the last 10 minutes than we have with any member of the board.
But I just wanna, because I think these are all good points and stuff like that. The school board, elected school board has decided, and the district has decided to go forward with the referendum. And that's fine. And, you know, as much as there has been or hasn't been, or enough conversations between, you know, the borough and the school district, you know, people can agree on how much is happening. But in the end, you know, as for the municipality itself, I don't want to interject myself in the bond right? Like, you know what I mean?
You
Like,
did,
I did.
you did,
Tell
yes.
me where I at.
Well, I saw you sign the letter with Jay Morgan where you proposed.
Yeah,
bond.
but,
That's not any projection.
well, yes, stand corrected, but that was to try to open dialogue. At this point, right, we're gonna have before it. I want to go through all these waves here and say, oh, borough, what do you mean? Like,
It's out
the water is out there, people can look at the facts and make judgments. And, you know, I don't wanna, at this point, that was our chance to do that. And so we made that entree, tried to have that conversation. They're right, and I respect that, is to say, no. So now, 2 weeks before, I don't want to blow things up one way or another by being here. Like, they have a responsibility, and that's what I mean. So yes, you're absolutely right at that point. But once we reach a certain point, have that off. It's not, you know what I mean? They have a responsibility, they have the right, and that's okay. That's wrong. Thank you.
Once, we're going between the Brian and the Rooms side here,
And
okay?
I talked to a lot of them, there's no animosity here, we're gonna work together regardless of what happens. I don't know where.
Oh,
they're gonna be,
okay,
but
all right.
I know we talk regularly.
Go ahead, just give me.
Lindsay Oster, 1005 McGill Avenue. With regards to the transportation, I had heard from Bruce Smith back in January that the district, the school district and the borough were working together with regards to transportation. He specifically mentioned trolleys, that the borough said to Bruce and the other school board, or I know he's not a school board member, sorry, to the school board, that the borough wants trolleys to take people throughout the town, to Mayfair, to the arts festival, whatever the case may be, trolleys all around town. And that the school board was working with the borough hand in hand to use these trolleys to, in this proposal, get children to and from school, that it would only be for school children, the beginning of the day and end of the day, and the rest of the time it would be run by the borough. Can you clarify these details?
I'm not aware of that, sir. Discuss.
I've been on a discussion about trucks.
No,
Okay, thank you.
sure. Yes.
Is this why you're a no?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry, Eric Schmidt, 904 Park Avenue. So you're a no, we know you're a no, you have a no sign.
Personally,
Personally,
yes, yeah.
But you do realize that your position as mayor is a lot more powerful than like my yes or her no, right? You recognize.
Absolutely.
Why are you a no?
As I have said a number of times in the press, and to anybody who wants to talk to me about it, because the process, I think, has been more than awful, okay?
Okay.
It is, and I've said this to the board members as well, that if you're going to go through, no one seems, and we said this in our letter, nobody seemed to disagree with the goals. Nobody disagrees with the goals, okay? But you can't come out and say, we're closing 2 neighborhood schools on a bond referendum that's the biggest this town has ever done, okay? And just come out, boom, with a plan. It's done without any community input.
Do you know
And
what the
I-
process was? Because
and
there was
listen,
community.
I can tell you, when I was informed that this referendum was happening, which is probably February this year, March, okay? That was the first I had heard, okay? I keep track of these things, like, I'm really involved, like, I know a lot of what's going on, I'm really aware of things that are going on. If that's the first time I heard about it, I can guarantee you that the majority of people in this town never heard anything about it. Okay? And so that's where I'm coming from. And since then, I've talked to a lot of people that were not involved in the process. And so that our push, our letter, everything we sent was, we'll go take away what we think is the deadline. And then let's go through a process. We didn't say no, we said, let's get through a process, let's buy some time.
Do you know the proficiency gaps, the achievement gaps at the school?
I'm aware of everything that's in the PowerPoint presentation that we presented, yes.
Are you, okay, so you see in the state that the testing scores, you know that there currently are 0 Black students that are proficient in English language arts?
Look
That's
at,
right
you
there.
don't need to go through this, you don't have to, you don't need to go through this. You're not gonna sway my vote, it's
Okay.
because of the process,
Okay, but,
not those goals,
so you
it's the
think the
process.
process is worth wasting more time? It's more important to have a process than it is to address.
We didn't have to waste this time, it could have been done the right way the first time,
Yeah.
that's all. That's all, simple as that. It could have been.
So it's been 6
Listen, we held more public meetings to build a police and fire station
Oh,
than there were to close 2 neighborhood schools.
Did anyone get to vote on that?
We know you don't get the vote right, but even then,
Right,
no, you're right, but you know what? You know what's really bizarre? Even though you didn't get a chance to vote, we held more public meetings.
but we didn't have a say.
Yes, you did. There were a lot of people here. Oh, no, out of us. No, no,
We got to vote, we
You,
got to vote on, are we gonna get to vote on the water tower? On
No.
that?
no, but you will have plenty, okay. Thank you.
We're not.
Thank you. Okay. Listen, I love you all, okay, but like, let's not do referendum. Okay?
Why?
This is not, because it's a vote, there's a vote, okay. Go ahead, we'll go around. Kate,
All right, this is
Go
a
ahead.
referendum, but it is school district related.
go right ahead. Name and address for the record.
Kate Delaney, 126 East Palmer Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So when I've asked at past meetings about the impact of pilots on our school districts, you've repeatedly said the schools get every penny they're entitled to. With this comment in mind, I filed identical records requests to the borough and the school district, and I got 2 very contradictory reports. From the school district, I got a reply that there were no records responsive to my request because the schools do not get any money from the town pilots. From the borough, I received a document that stated that the town has given the school $200,000 a year from 2015 to 2023. There was no real detail in document. So can you help me understand the discrepancy between these 2 versions of how pilots are funding or not funding?
Sure. So first, we'll talk about the dollar amounts and whatever you asked for and the way your request was. And then just generic, okay? So the borough pays the board $280 a year? $280 a year out of the Parkview pilot, $250, $280, $280,000, $250, $250,000. Every year that portion's paid over. I don't know what your over request was, but it's possible like it doesn't come in a check that's labeled like pilot payment or something, like I don't know what the request was, but they get that every year, they have since 1996. Okay, so yes, there's payments that are made every year. And then just generically, the reason why I say pilots do not affect school funding is because schools put together a budget, okay, without any regard for the tax base. They put together a budget, and let's say, just as an example, the budget is $1 million. They put together that budget for $1 million, and they turn that over to our tax department, and they are paid every year $1 million, okay? If today we were to put half the town under a pilot, okay? Half the town under a pilot, the school would get $1 million. The budget they put together is not, they don't calculate or figure what the pilot payments are. They put together what they need for a thorough, efficient education, $1 million. They send us the bill, they get paid $1 million. Okay, it doesn't take any out. It does mean, and we did this back in '96 with Parkview, which was by far the biggest one here, is no letting everybody do a huge public outreach program then to tell everybody, you're going to pay a little bit more. Okay, you're going to pay a little bit more. That's what it does. It does not take a nickel out of schools.
But it brings, because it brings up a fundamental question that I don't really hear people asking, is operation. Do the schools have enough money to do what they want to do? And that's an entirely different question, right? Because as long as there's been a cap on budgets, and 2% a year is the max you can do unless you go out through referendum and all that stuff, is essentially 2%, that's fine, and you can max that every year. But if your costs are going up 3% a year, you capitalize that over several years. Now we have a structural deficit that could be a fundamental problem. This is one of my great concerns about our school district, is do we have a structural deficit? And then the question is, you know, does that affect academic achievement? Does it affect the quality of schools? You know, I sent 3 kids through our public schools. I love this school district. I'm grateful for the education we got, but I know there are also parts that are weak. So you know, if we have sort of backed ourselves into by a 2% cap, put it in place, 2010 for Christine, right? So you know, 15 years of maybe our budget growth exceeding our revenues coming in, we've got a big problem. So now that then comes, we have a big problem. We see that there's problems with student achievement, there's disparities, there's all these other. And the idea is, does a capital solution, this $45 million to sort of change what our schools look like, is that the best thing to do to serve our students? Or are we better off looking at a structural deficit and operational stuff that could possibly bring our teachers, counselors, or a lot of things? You know, I can talk about, because I've done it more recently, the college exploration, you know, thing for my 3 children. And I think that the counselors do as much as they can, but it wasn't a lot. But what my children have are 2 educated parents who've done a lot of stuff in higher education, who have the time, have the resources. And so they were okay. But is everyone okay? I don't know. So we look at this, we look at the bond referendum, and I look at it and say, 45 million. Is it going to solve fundamental problem in academic achievement? I sure as hell hope it does, because you're in it for 35 years and you can't take it back. If you increase your operational budget in any year, and you say, well, it isn't really working, or something else is hard, you can take that back and change it. You cannot change once you go to capital stuff, you're stuck with that money. So I think it's a good question about the budget. I just don't see that we're asking the right questions. And I'm concerned about a structural deficit and what that's doing.
Right, and I have 2 other quick follow-up thoughts related to this issue that speak to the concerns that you just raised, Rob, about the budget and economic need of our schools. So first I want to share, as you may know, in 2016, the governor of Louisiana enacted a major overhaul of their equivalent of pilots called ITEP, Industrial Tax Exemption Program. His changes to the corporate subsidies program gave local government bodies, just school boards, the ability to reject the portion of a property tax exemption that would affect their own budgets. So corporations had to come before local government bodies, like boards of education, and make the case that they deserve whatever tax exemption they were applying for. His changes to the corporate tax handouts had a major impact in communities. In just one example, in West Baton Rouge Parish, annual funding for the schools increased by $10 million. Representing 27% of the school budget, the school board's entire budget, the increase was enough to hire 200 new teachers. Comprehensive reporting on this is available from the American Economic Liberties Project. Though this example is from Louisiana, there's an important lesson for New Jersey and for our community. If more people are at the table when these corporate tax breaks are being deliberated, it may change the outcome and may result in additional funds for our schools. So as I've said in the past, I believe that the Board of Education should be at the table if we are initiating new pilot agreements. And then finally, I wanted to state for the record that according to the 2023 budget submitted to the Department of Community Affairs Division of Local Government Service, the difference between the Borough's pilot billing and what the tax revenue would be if those entities were billed in full is over $2 million. You recently proposed canceling the school board's referendum to instead of a referendum to pay teachers' salaries. Maybe what needs to be canceled is the routine practice of handing out tax abatements so we can recover those lost funds and finally fully fund our schools.
Thank you.
So let me just want to point this out. In the last 5-6 years, I think the only pilot we've done has been after we announced that if we did any more pilots, we were gonna take a substantial portion of the revenue from that and dedicate it to the recreation fields. We did that after we met with the school board and told them that. We have done one, 900 building. Since that's been online, the pilot's been doing it, we have been segregating that money for use in recreation fields. Up until February of this year, we thought that was the plan, okay? So obviously it's not. So we'll have to wait and see later this month what happens with the vote, where we are. Hopefully we can all sit down and talk about it. Okay? All right, anyone else? Yes? Your name and address for the record, please.
Rebecca Finkel, 916. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Rebecca Finkel, 916 Park Avenue. This is my first commissioners meeting. Thank you so much.
Got a sticker or something?
So, Mayor Bailey, you said that you are a person who knows what's going on. We also know that you publicly support through financial donations and through alongside the Referendum Action Committee. This organization has distributed printed materials that misrepresent the tax impact of the referendum by conflating homes' assessed value with market value. They've also claimed, and I quote, "Your bond tax will be more than these values when the new property assessment is applied." I appreciate you going through the basics of the reassessment, but are you aware that these messages are being spread in the community through printed flyers?
No, I'm not.
I do have a follow-up if you have.
Sure, go ahead.
And it's important to me to ask because I'm addressing an all-white board, but members of the Referendum Action Committee have also publicly said that trusting the expertise and experience of district leaders of color who have helped develop the referendum is tokenizing. Do you agree that leaders of color shouldn't be trusted to lead equity efforts in Collinswood?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. What? You want me to agree with somebody's statement that you're saying is a bad statement?
Do you agree? I offered no qualification of the statement. These are statements that are being publicly shared by a group that you publicly support. You know, this is information
listen,
that's being.
Rebecca, I don't know that that's the case. I honest to God have done all I can to not be aware of the social media chatter. I've not looked at all of the political stuff. Let me finish. I let you finish, okay? I have not kept track of all that. People are gonna get the vote on it. They're gonna vote. I have a position, my own position, but people are gonna get the vote and we'll see where we go from there.
As community members, what should we do when we see misinformation shared through printed materials?
It's a campaign. You're running a campaign. That's what you're doing.
Well, that campaign has your support and those messages are associated. with
Well,
it.
listen, I've been involved in a lot of campaigns and there's misinformation that happens in those. And you just make your arguments and you work to convince people and that's how it goes.
Then you
No one
find
gets,
yourself-
no one gets sprung up if there's any misinformation, and everybody thinks the other guy's misinforming, so
But I
let the voters decide.
I do want to be clear on one thing, because the revaluation is an important thing that we do here. And a doubling of the, whatever increase the value of your home does not, if you went into the calculator in the school district right now, if I went in there and said, okay, my house is presently worth is valued at $300,000, if it goes up to 600, it will not double your price. It will essentially probably be for the bond, it will roughly be around the same. I do want to be clear, I do want to
But I'm
be,
not sure.
well, then I gotta speak to everyone. I do want to be clear about that because people sometimes don't understand the revaluation process. So I just want to be clear, is a doubling of the value does not necessarily double your tax. As a matter of fact, it does not do that. There may go up or down a little bit based on, where your house is relative to other properties, the work that was done to its condition could go up, could go down, but essentially, it's not fundamentally changed. So I want to be clear about that. I didn't see what's written there until someone sent me something yesterday or today, but that's not the case.
I'll
So,
share copies.
no, I saw somebody emailed
Yeah.
the text, so,
Yeah.
yeah. But thank you.
Yes, David, address for the record.
Yes, Megan DeSmet, 220 Vermont Terrace. Mayor Mealy, I'd like to ask some follow-up questions with you. Given that you have personally and politically invested in the Vote No campaign, I think it's reasonable for constituents to ask you about this. Before you invested in the Vote No campaign, did you meet with members of that group?
Did I what?
Meet with members of that group?
Oh, I know a few people, yeah.
Okay. Did you meet with anybody on the other side to learn more about why many of your constituents support?
I haven't met with anyone that has asked to meet with me. I have not sought anyone out.
I also went to the first presentation the school board did on this proposal and had some feedback on how I thought the plan could be communicated better, specific questions that I thought could be addressed. Like you, I think you said you support the goals of the plan, is that right?
Yeah.
I also support the goals of the plan, and so I approached the board with, oh, hey, here's some ideas and some suggestions, here's some, there was a forum for constituents to ask questions, to get more of that out in the public discourse. Did you do anything like that?
I sure did.
Okay,
To the only people that talked to me about it, which was Bruce Smith came and spoke with me, and the super came and spoke with me. And I told them both at the time that I thought the process was flawed, and this is what I would recommend that they do. And they said, well, this is what we're doing.
I think I'm guessing most, if not all of us in this room also read the article and I did kind of about the meeting you had with some of the school board members. To
Right.
discuss your proposal and their, did you
Yes.
engage in a dialogue and back and forth about that?
Morgan, that's not me having a dialogue. Morgan was there.
I know I'm asking you because you have invested so much personally in.
Oh, no, you wanna know what happened at the meeting. Morgan can tell you if there was a back and forth in the dialogue at the meeting.
There was not a lot of opportunity for dialogue at the meeting. I did stay with the group after the meeting was over for that opportunity to talk with them more fully. I am not opposed, for the record, I am not opposed. I strongly disagree with the method, and the communication was not done well in any way. But for me personally, the goals are important enough that I can move past the delivery or lack of delivery of information. I don't know, I don't appreciate their saying, well, we don't have this, and this plan, but you guys take care of that. Without the things that we had already planned to take care of and work with and help with. So being left in the dark on a lot of things as a group, but then be expected to pick it up. A lot of it is just not well done. It's just not at all. But the opportunity we presented to go to that meeting and have a discussion, and we're met with a television bigger than the meeting with a PowerPoint presentation on it, and it wasn't an environment where we were gonna have discourse about what's next, because they had already decided and handed us a no thank you at the door, basically. So it wasn't an opportunity for discourse.
Sure. Mayor Mealy,
I also was wondering if you could share what else you contributed to the Vote No campaign besides your financial contribution, which was on their disclosure report, but what other ways have you been supporting the campaign?
Oh, I talked to them, talked about electioning and just talked to them.
Did you connect them with any of the vendors that you know or have used in the past on your decades of campaigns?
No.
You know that.
I couldn't tell you what vendors I use on any of my campaigns ever.
So you didn't.
I don't
their
deal with,
mail
I don't know who they are.
Is the same mail company that you use for your campaigns? You didn't know that?
I did not know.
Do you think it's unusual that the mail firm?
I'm sorry, am I American? Can you cross here and look at me?
You brought up your extended political campaign experience, so I'm just wondering if you think some of the things that
I am not running a vote no campaign. I am not involved in it. Haven't been to any meetings. People who have asked to speak with me on any part of this issue, I have met with them. Okay, I've met with every single person that has asked to meet. Okay, you know, you guys are welcome to meet too. I haven't heard, nobody's asked. Nobody on the board has asked to talk. Nobody, okay? So, I don't know what else I can tell you. I'm not running a campaign. No.
It's total coincidence that all their vendors are the same.
Well, I would think it's the same people that do a lot of political printing. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Okay, if that's what it is, then it is.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Mike Muller, 509 Dwight Avenue. Just curious if there is a plan, if the referendum fails, on the 17th, for what the borough will do with the Good Shepherd building? And is there an avenue to somehow, shepherd that, no pun intended, into the district's hands, if it's a net positive for the community without closing of the schools?
So we don't own Good Shepherd School. We don't have any contractual rights to Good Shepherd School. So what, you know, after the referendum, I would hope we're all talking.
Okay.
I hope we're all talking. However it goes, I hope we're all talking.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Clary. Our regular Mr. Clary. I had to address.
743 Maple Terrace. I have a suggestion, if the thing fails, the borough should still buy the building and turn it into a youth center. They would have a gym, they would have a cafeteria where they can use in the summertime to feed the lesser children that need food during the summertime. And you want to have rooms that have art room, a game room, whatever. And they can use it after school, during the summer, whatever.
Great suggestion. Thank you. Yes.
And we're gonna appreciate your support despite the process. It sounds like there's some problems between you guys and the board. Is that true? I mean, I didn't know about this. This is the first time I'm hearing it. Oh, sorry, Eric's been 904 far back. Do you have to give your why? Because what you're describing here is some serious communication issues. I'm a little shocked here. Because I've been at a lot of board meetings and I've never had it, and I've emailed board members and I've shaken them down on the street. I've never had any communication issues with them.
Because we had a meeting in February at the public safety building about the rec plan.
Right.
We're all on one committee, we're all a steering committee. We met with 3-4 of the board members, the superintendent, Ruth Smith, all of us there, heard the presentation of that. We were all working together. We thought we were all on the same page, working toward it. And then a few weeks later, Ruth Smith told me they were doing a referendum. And this is what the referendum was, and I suggested, you can't just come out with this, like, you gotta go through some process here. And
Are you aware of
That was
the
it.
research supporting it?
I understand the research. Listen, you can't, when neighborhoods, when you're making that drastic a change, this is my opinion. When you're making this drastic a change in neighborhoods, okay? With the goals that everyone agrees on, if you go through some process, some dialogue with them, I told this to Bruce, I think that this could be done. I just think you would need to do a lot of meetings and interaction and dialogue with the community. That you can't just come out and say, this is the cup, and you say yes or no to that cup. Okay, that's what I said to him the first time he laid it out for me. When Dr. McDowell came a few weeks later, he was showing me his PowerPoint. And I said, you know, Dr. McDowell, that's all fine, I get it, but listen, you need to go through a process so that people don't feel like you're taking something. Okay, get them engaged in the process. And that's what my big objection is, that's all, that's it.
Because I don't think there's, the people that came up with this are education policy researchers. There are multiple ed policy researchers who support the plan.
I
and there's a
understand.
lot of that. So you think that all of those people who do this for a living, done this for years, are wrong. because
No,
of the
I
process.
didn't say that, I didn't say that, what I said was. Just because a bunch of smart people say this is the way to go, okay, and you're going through it now. That's not who has to approve this.
But you
Okay.
can't interrupt
A
us.
community of voters has to. I have my own opinion.
No, but your suggestion to the board was to delay the vote, to interrupt the democratic process,
Oh,
and not, that was your suggestion.
They told us.
okay, all right, thank you, anything else? Okay, yes, oh, you know what, we're going Brian Root, we'll take one more, yes.
Lindsay Oster again, 1005 McGill Avenue. To piggyback on what I believe her name was Erica, what she was saying about the meetings with the board. And you said that you met with Bruce and Dr. McDowell and other board members in February. Bruce had me over to his house as a representative of the Sharp PTA. I was the Sharp PTA president at the time in January. And he specifically said, we are working hand in hand with the borough. So you're saying that you did not know any of this until February when he had told
First I
us?
learned if a referendum was February or March it was, yes.
So why would he tell us that they were?
Let's not listen, let's not get, let's not do this, let's not do this. So Rebecca, you and your hand, yes, go ahead, same address,
Are you aware of?
name and address,
Oh,
but
Rebecca Single,
record.
916 Park. These are new to me. Don't need for this now. Are you aware of the Vision 2026 plan?
Yeah.
The document?
Yes,
Are you aware that the process is laid out in that document?
No.
And that it includes you, it includes community members. I mean, I think that the problem here is that the people who are accustomed to being asked were not asked. And I think that's the fundamental problem, but to say that there was no process is false. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Yes, sir, name and address for the record, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Not him, her.
Yeah, go ahead, you're good, go
My
ahead.
name's Denise, I live in Camden County, I'm not a community member of Collingswood, but I'm interested in township meetings, so that's why I'm here.
Oh,
But I am fascinated by some of your statements, one of them revolving around this referendum. And if I understand you correctly, you are a no vote on this referendum because of a lack of, is it discussion with you or discussion with the community as a whole?
No, it has nothing to do with me, it is that the community has not been engaged in this process.
And why do you feel that that's important? Oh my God, it's us paying for it.
Because we're
That's
closing,
weird.
because we're closing 2 neighborhood schools, which has never, ever been done in this borough. And it's at a price tag on average home of $600 a year. And it's the largest bond referendum we've ever done. Listen, a number of years ago, we did a $30 million bond referendum, different process, okay? Board worked with us, we developed that plan together. We went through the expansion of the middle school, the high school, the connection. That was every elementary school got work. That was a plan borough and board developed together, supported together, outreach together. Very different process. So that's why. It's just a really big quote. And I think that we could have eased some of this by changing how that process went.
So are you saying like if you had more community meetings, that more people were involved, it would have been a different story for you?
I do, yes. Oh, definitely would.
Okay. That was my first question. My second question revolves around the redevelopment areas and the pilot payments and your statement regarding the schools getting their $1 million. And they would get the $1 million regardless of the pilots. But it's always been my understanding, with the pilot payments, that the businesses pay their pilot payments directly to the community, nothing goes to the schools. So if the communities paid their fair share of money to the schools, wouldn't that lessen the tax burden on the residents as far as funding their schools?
Yeah, well, yes, that's what I said earlier. The impact is on residents and what they pay, not on a school. The schools get their $1 million budget no matter what.
But
What
if the
Rob,
schools,
hang on one second, what Rob was referring to is really what the issue is. The issue with schools, with layoffs, and it's not just us, it's all over. The issue is the cap. The issue is 2% cap. The issue is, we go through, we got 2% cap too, okay? Health insurance hasn't gone up 2% in 100 years. So living within that cap, that's what what the issue is. And that's the issue with the budget about how to resolve. But the $1 million, the schools do not get shortchanged by a pilot. Everyone else pays something more, okay? And the only pilot we've done in the last 5-6 years is one in which we announced before we met with the school board and told them, and they were, this is a really good idea, okay? And was that we were gonna take a substantial portion of that and devoted to covering debt service to do fields back behind the high school.
okay,
That was
so
the plan.
are you guys the redevelopment entity in Collingswood?
We are, yes.
Okay, so what percentage, I mean, driving here tonight, it seems like it's a pretty nice town. So it just,
It's your first time driving here to town?
well,
Okay.
sort of, I don't,
Okay,
I don't
all right.
hear all,
Come on.
maybe once or twice.
Buy dinner one.
So driving through the town, I was noticing it seems like a, pretty nice town. So in your opinion, what percentage of the town do you feel is dilapidated and requires financial incentives for development?
Going forward?
Currently.
You could ask me 30 years ago, but going forward, I think the only one that we're trying to offer incentive may be the garage, the old gas station up at Browning and Haddon. Not much, not a lot.
So how much of the Collingswood is an area in need of rehabilitation?
The whole borough. The entire borough,
So how does that make sense?
Single designation.
yes.
How does that make sense if only one small area? You're saying
Because-
it's dilapidated
because
and requires.
All right, listen, I appreciate you coming out, look, we're not, this redevelopment, whole different thing than rehabilitation, okay?
Not really,
Redevelopment is
because
the
you
only
have-
place you can do long-term pilots on, rehabilitation you can, whole different definition. I appreciate your interest to come out tonight.
Well, in order
How
to
many-
do an area in a redevelopment area, it has to be an area in need of rehabilitation.
No, it doesn't, that's just incorrect.
According to local housing and redevelopment law, you cannot do a study to make an area a redevelopment area unless it's an area in need of rehabilitation.
Okay, all right, that's
So-
not correct, but thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Yes, Joe.
Yeah, you mentioned, I'm sorry, Joe Scalento, 194 Lawnside. You mentioned, and I remember reading about it when you guys did the 900 Haddon Avenue pilot, that you were kind of sequestering the pilot funds into something that then we could use for developing our rec spaces here in town, shared with the school district. What is the help of that fund and the status of that fund?
Top of my head, I don't know.
Okay.
I just don't know.
Does it come anything close to the level of investment of this bond rec?
Oh, not $35 million.
No, it would be a debt service payment, it would be essentially paying a part of the mortgage, if you will, bond, the bond debt. versus, a big front load of a lot of money. It's only been a pilot for 2 years now.
So what were the plans with those funds before that you said that you guys were doing some plans?
We were gonna sit with the school board and like work out what the plan.
Yeah, so ultimately,
Like we hope.
in my mind, I think where the conversation is going is we know we have sort of a challenge to meet the programmatic needs for our recreation programs. And that the fields back there, if they were built a certain way, could provide more use that we can't get at Night Park, and we don't have anywhere else. So the idea is we can do things on Sunday. We don't have to send traveling teams to play their own things in Camden or other things. So I think the idea specifically was around, the recreation study in itself was much wider, but specific to the relation to school, that one school we were thinking about, because it's, costs a lot. So.
Yeah, the thing of it more is a debt service vehicle. It's more something to pay the debt. I think we get $100 out of that, we could borrow 1,000. Just be like that.
And is there, if the rep passes, can some of those funds?
Oh, we're gonna, listen, 18th, we're all talking, we're all still gonna be here, we're all talking, yeah. Anyone else? Yes, Mary Ellen, David, address.
Mary Ellen Reed, 401 Virginia County. For those of you who haven't lived here for a while, I've lived here since '83. And owned a house since '86. And worked for the borough for a while in zoning and planning, been on zoning board and planning board. This town was in bad shape. You say now it looks good. It does, but that's because of the work that people who have led our town and the people who live in the town have put towards getting this town in shape. Parkview was a mess. It was a horror. You would watch we used to have the firehouse was right here, it's for sale now. You'd see the cops and the fire trucks going down Commons to the apartments. We had other apartments, which is now Peter Village. It was a mess, completely a pit with people living there who was putting their neighborhood in turmoil. You have no idea, if you haven't been here for a while, what is now going on in this town is such rubber. And you need to put it in that light when you look towards what we're going to do, right? Because it's really a major change. Thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Anyone else? Yes.
Hey, my name is Diana, 220 Woodlawn Terrace. I moved to Collingswood in 2018, so I haven't lived here as long as you. But I moved here when my son was starting to move, honestly. We were in a tiny little house in South Philly and couldn't find places in our neighborhood in South Philly that would have enough space for him to move around. Obviously, it was a privilege of the fortune move, and we landed here. And in the spring of 2018, updated my voter registration, and I remember that was the last bond referendum for the school, right? It was for the field in 2018. And I didn't know anything, I knew very little about college, but I didn't know anything about schools or local politics, whatever. And looking into that, and I was raised by, my mom was a teacher and a principal for decades in South Jersey. So we always vote yes and invest in schools. So I was like, yeah, of course I'm gonna vote yes, but let me see what's going on here, right? And I was so shocked to see that the mayor of my new town was opposed to that investment in schools. And didn't make a lot of sense to me, and I didn't think too much about it. It seemed a little bit like an ego thing between you and the former superintendent was what my impression was reading stories. But then now fast forward 6 years later, and here we are in the same place. And so I have to ask the mayor, what is your plan when something like what happened at Garfield this summer where the steps are collapsing? And we have 100-year-old buildings in our district, and you keep coming out against investing in our schools. So what's your plan for when those problems become more significant?
Sure, I'd be happy to be engaged in any plan for anything with respect to the school.
But you are.
And let me just back, no, let me finish. Let me back up to before you got here in T, because just a couple of years before that, there was a $30 million bond referendum, which I referenced earlier, that was done with the board and the borough. 30 million, biggest at the time ever, okay? And that referendum was to expand the high school, expand the middle school, do the connection, do upgrades in all of the neighborhood schools. We worked in a process, okay? Fully supported it, guess what? It won, it passed, okay? So, I really object to you saying I'm against investment in the schools, okay? I laid out the reasons on this one, would have loved to have been engaged in any process at all on this issue for this time, okay? Would have loved to have been. And on the last one, and not because they need me, they don't need me, but I think the way the process has gone, I think we could have contributed some help. Okay, as to do it in a little better of a way that didn't lead to what we have today. Okay, which is, I'm worried on the 18th that everybody's pointing fingers, you're yes because of this, you're no because of this. That's where we're headed. Okay, and that I think we could have done some things to help with that.
Yeah, I guess the difference is, I care about I care about all of you in town, and I think there's people on the other side here, right? I know many of you are. We all care about our kids, and we have a gift for how to make schools better for all of our kids. We might disagree on exactly what that means, but I know we're gonna work together. You keep throwing your weight behind the no vote without any demand for what you're gonna do. And actually, your vote matters as much as mine, and your word matters as mine.
So that's why we made the proposal back at the beginning of July, right?
So only if
To
you're
build, what's that?
You're only in support of us paying for schools and you're involved in the creating it at the start.
Well, thank you. I'm not.
The insinuation that it's all based in ego and that Jim Daly doesn't care is entirely unfair.
You can have that opinion, that's fine.
Well, I'm asking what you're.
No, I don't, listen, we haven't been involved in any of this plan. So don't, you're, okay, so on the one hand, you're telling me I'm the mayor, I should be involved with the plan. And on the other hand, you're saying I should have nothing to do with the plan. So I just want you to know.
About what's going on in the schools, but
You know how I said to you earlier, anyone that has asked to meet with me, I've met with them, okay? Soon as a school board member asked to meet with me, I would have met with them 6 months ago, a year ago. We set up meetings and invited them on our rec program. We had meetings, we had them all there. They were there as part of the plan, we were doing this. We were all working together, right? We were all there, all together. And then we found out about this. So we didn't interrupt any process that we were in, okay? And so to tell me what's my plan afterward, my plan the day after this would be meet with the board and see what we can do to put together a plan together. Absolutely, happy to be a part.
I know you guys are disappointed, but I appreciate your.
So can I just? I can't get 5 people to agree on dinner and any night in my house. So to think that I'm gonna get 14,000 people to agree on anything is just crazy. And I think we just all have to understand that, like, this is how democracy works. In all its ugliness, this is how it works. And no offense, Jim Daly don't really matter, right? I don't matter, Morgan, we do, as do you, as does everyone else. And you know, proportionally, some people may have more resources, but $275 or whatever it is, I'm gonna, you know, run a campaign. Like, this is, what's important here is going to be, you know, to look at the problem, right? Define the problem and the solution, and then, you know, we fix a solution, here's the solution here, right? Have a solution to this thing, and say, is this the right solution? Is this where we should dedicate our resources? You know, get up, what we're gonna get there, and people need to come to that agreement in their own minds, or hearts, and you're gonna spend. I'd say, like, what's important right now is not Jim Daly or Rob Lewandowski, Morgan Robinson, school board or anything like that. And by the way, the question was asked, you know, what's wrong with your relationship? I have friends on that school board. It's my friends and my neighbors, and I'm so grateful for the work they do because I've done school board work. It's hard work and it's thankless work. And but ultimately now we're past this. It's about you and what you think is right for this community, for your family, the individual people. And look at this stuff and different stuff. For some people, $400, $700, it's gonna be a lot of money to pay. Right? And I don't want to discount that. For other people, it's what's gonna happen to my children. You know, to others, you know, I think the idea of having segregated schools is abhorrent. I mean, you know, the thing, figure it out. Like, but ultimately, it's not about us, not about the school board. It's about you and the problem that's out there, the solution that's being recommended is important. That's it. That's it. That's where we're at.
There's a hand raised at the back. Yes. Just name and address for the record.
My name is Dina Hendry. I also am a Camden County resident and traveling to different meetings. I do have to say that I am in awe of your openness and you're willing to talk to your residents here of this town. I think it's really amazing. With that being said, because I am not. No, with me not knowing, what is the history of this makeup of this panel? Are you, possibly one's a Republican, one's a Democrat, one's a independent, like, how does this make up?
It's nonpartisan.
That's amazing. All three of you is nonpartisan.
No, I'm a registered D. The form of government is a registered D.
Right.
Registered D. But the form of government is nonpartisan.
Okay, that's
We
amazing.
don't run as Ds or Rs in municipal election.
That is absolutely amazing. Like I said, I don't know the backstory of what's going on, but I do have to say, as somebody who is involved in their township, we don't see our leader in meetings and having open dialogue with the people who have voted them in. So thank you for a great evening.
Thank you so much. Okay, that's the end of the night. Four bites in the apple until you get. No, go ahead.
How many apples? They can't now.
Not even for Rob.
Yeah.
I do actually have a structural deficit, so thank you for pointing that out. There's a structural deficit.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been really trying to.
Beth Ann gave a presentation all about it. It has to do with the money that the state thinks the borough is contributing, and so the state thinks we're contributing more money as a borough to the schools than we actually are. That is not your fault necessarily, or any of this is part of the funding, it's the funding formula. So there's a massive problem with the funding formula. It's going on everywhere in all districts, but we do have a structural deficit. Which is why, like, we can't, for instance, build a whole new school at Sharp, which is obviously the best plan, but we can't do that, we don't have money for that. So I guess my question is, or my point is that yes, we have structural deficit, so we would probably need the board and you guys to work together a little bit more to try to solve that issue, or to at least, you know, help out tax wise, or I know pilot wise, like to, you know, because I do know that there are pilots where all of the pilot money goes in New Jersey, all of the pilot money goes to schools. None of it goes to the borough. So again, I think Kate said this, but
That doesn't change what they get, because they're still asking for $1 million. They're using that as an example.
Right.
It doesn't get them any more.
There's a whole range of things that can be done.
right, they can only ask.
We're happy to meet.
Yeah.
Or
I guess that's my point, is that I think there is a structural deficit, and it's affecting all the kids, and that's why we're in this position we're in right now. And it's not this board's fault or the super's fault.
Proposal was to investigate changing the cap
part
and.
of,
Yeah.
part of the proposal we made, we'll get to school, buy some time, consider about.
Oh, yeah, Beth Ann did, against that, and that's still.
Yeah, well, we need to have discussion about that, because, we need to have a discussion, we should have a discussion about it. I'm not sure about that, that it just can't be done. All right, anybody else? Phillies are like well into the game already. No fans.
Nobody online.
Okay, great, go ahead, Joseph.
It's education, but not referendum related, Joseph Valento, 194 alongside. You approved a cannabis business ordinance at the start of the meeting.
We introduced, yes.
Introduced it, pardon. You introduced, that ordinance.
The license.
I've been wondering for a while, because I understand that these dispensaries, allow for an additional 2% sales tax. I've been wondering how that tax might be used to help our schools with the structural deficit they're experiencing.
The plan was fields. The plan was rec, pilots, cannabis, that was the plan.
That was your mark.
Spoken at meetings with them, okay? All right, so, but right now, we don't have anybody set yet. So when we get a nickel in the door, we'll start figuring out what we're gonna do. Okay, someone will see great about taking cannabis money for, wherever the money can come, grass or grass. All right, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I guess that's where it's at.
Thanks, Chad. You're getting your recognition.
Vote.
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 Yeah, please do.
Good night.